All right, joining me now is Dr. Bashima Williams. We're going to talk about RFK Jr. canceling about a $700 million contract over the bird flu, which isn't safe. How refreshing is it to have an HHS secretary that actually cares about the health of Americans? It's very refreshing. Make America healthy again, right? Well, that's certainly what we're trying to do. How about, let's talk about that. Let's talk about what happens when you're overweight. And then let's talk about a couple of viewers have sent in some questions. And then I think since our last visit last week, Dr. Bashima Williams has actually gone out and watched again The Firm, which was shot right here in Memphis, as I recommend that she do, and she did. We got a lot to talk about with Dr. Bashima. Dr. Bashima Williams, welcome back to the broadcast. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me again, Brandon. Always a pleasure as usual. And you never know where this conversation is going to, and you never know where this conversation is going to go with you at the head.
No, this is true. And which on that note, we were talking the other day. I think we're going to make a trip sometime after the middle of August. We'll make a trip. We'll endeavor to make a trip up to St. Louis. And your husband, the MD, you're an MD too, but your husband, I guess, is the one you're going to put me with, and he's going to listen to my heart, and he's going to dispel the myth that I'm the only surviving heart donor around, that I actually have a heart, and which, I think I do, but he'll verify that I have one. And kind of like the Grinch, it's getting bigger. I love the Grinch, by the way, so don't get me started on lines from the Grinch with Jim Carrey. I know all the lines. Let's see. And he's going to take my blood pressure. I'm actually going to get a somewhat of a checkup, guys, for the first time in a gazillion years. No, we're not doing anything. No prostate exam. Sorry. Still, that's a hard no. And I guess you're going to take some blood work. And then you're going to send it off and do whatever all that stuff it is you guys do. And then we're going to come back. I guess I need to sign some paperwork. And you're going to read my blood sample and report on the air. What do you think of that? That's like Evel Knievel, right on the edge of stuff, right?
We can certainly do that, but also just as a something to think about, we could actually order your labs after you officially just fill out some paper, some history, medical history, that kind of thing. We can actually order your labs before you come to the office. That way we have the results and we can review them with you first in private.
Well, how are you going to get my blood?
So that would be at any Quest or LabCorp. We can order labs anywhere in the country. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So then when we come there, we could actually set up our camera and film, and we can go over my lab work for the whole audience to find out. That's
right. I would recommend that you find out first, just in case. I don't know if you read the longevity show that Disney had, which I thought was really interesting. And there is a famous actor, Chris Hemsworth, who found out that he has the gene that increases his risk for dementia. And his physician, Dr. Peter Attia, did not want to share that with him in front of the whole world without sharing it with him privately first. So we do like to share privately first, just full disclosure, and then you can share what you want to share.
All right, that's fine. We can do that. But if I had a tendency toward dementia, I'd still tell my audience, because I think I have a product that helps with that. It's called Numi with glutathione to detox take metal out of your brain, mercury out of your brain, I should say, and help prevent Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's. So, I don't know what we're going to find out, but I'll tell the audience. I mean, what are you going to do? It is what it is, right?
Right. And Chris Hemsworth also told the audience with the idea that you can do so many lifestyle things right now that can, even if you're a high risk person, significantly delay the onset, if not prevent it altogether. So even though you might have a 70% increased risk, what you do today, and that was the value of it, right? The value of knowing this information is so that you can act on it, not just so that you can live in fear of, oh my gosh, when am I going to get this? So what we have to realize and understand is that you can't change your genes. You are born with whatever you're born with, but you can change the way those genes express themselves. That is called phenotypic expression. So you can definitely alter your genes in a sense of how they work, not what they are. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. So you just need to tell me where here in the Mid-South I need to go, get my blood work taken, and we'll get cracking on that.
Yep.
Okay. All right, let's go to this here. This is CNBC. Listen to what they reported yesterday. Here we go.
The administration has canceled a contract with Moderna for the development of a bird flu vaccine for humans. Our Angelica Peebles joins us now with more, and you could conjecture a lot of things about this between RFK Jr. and vaccines and mRNA. What's behind all this, Angela?
Yeah, good morning, Joe. So this is just the latest in a string of events that we've seen related to COVID vaccines over the last week. And what's happening here is that the Trump administration is canceling a more than $700 million contract with Moderna to develop a bird flu vaccine and other pre-pandemic influenza viruses. And so what's really notable about this is that obviously we've seen this, we've seen bird flu tearing through birds and also dairy cows and the risk to humans. And so what we saw in the Biden administration is that they really ramped up this work and they were helping to fund, they were going to fund a phase 3 trial to see if we could use mRNA for a bird flu vaccine if it indeed spills over to humans. And now the cancellation of this vaccine is quite a surprise, maybe not a surprise now because we had been hearing rumblings about this for the past few months. But, we just saw this contract ramp up right before the last administration left. And now you have the Trump administration saying that they felt like after a rigorous review, we concluded that the continued investment in Moderna's H5N1 mRNA vaccine was not scientifically or ethically justifiable. And they're saying that it's not just about efficacy, it's about safety. And so it's interesting to hear them really casting doubt on just the safety and the efficacy of mRNA vaccines as a whole.
Well, there you go. And that's a good thing, Doctor. That's a very good thing to see almost $700 million canceled on the bird flu vaccine. Apparently, HHS Secretary Kennedy doesn't think it's safe. It hasn't been proven to be safe, right?
The long-term studies on safety are unknown right now. We are literally in a mix of a science experiment, similar to EMF and all the effects of EMF that we know is having at the cellular level and increasing oxidative stress. Another good reason to take that glutathione, because glutathione is your body's number one antioxidant. So if you are in the middle of a science experiment, then 5, 10, 15 years down the line, we have no idea what will happen to our bodies, our children that we're injecting these vaccines with. We don't know. Long-term studies are unknown right now because these vaccines, and especially the mRNA technology, was put out so quickly. And to be honest, Brandon, if I go back to 2001, when I read the book, What Your Doctor Is Not Telling You About Vaccines, even back then, there's a certain amount of side effects that the vaccine company expects, and the government protects them against having major lawsuits. And even in families where one child has been given a vaccine and has had a really severe bad reaction, the next child who is up for that vaccine still is required to get that vaccine according to, schools and even colleges. I had a pre-med student who later became an amazing orthopedic surgeon, by the way, whose brother had a severe reaction to the DTaP vaccine, which caused such a severe fever that the child ended up getting encephalitis and became mentally disabled. Now, when it was his brother, who's the orthopedic surgeon, he's trying to get the vaccine. His mom did not want it, but waivers were really difficult to get through in medical school. And we did not want that same reaction potentially to happen to his brother. And so these types of things, these are unknowns. And the thing is these drug companies are protected by the government. So if we have side effects, then we cannot sue them.
Take a look at this. The McCullough Foundation put this out. Twin babies die a week after receiving 3 vaccines. Police interrogate the parents. Well, of course they did. Of course they did. Look, I tend to be, I used to be pro-police. I'm not sure how I put it anymore, because I don't want to say I'm pro-police, because that makes it sound like I am biased and always in the camp of the police. So I'm not anyone that's pro-police anymore. That's a bad way. I am a realist, okay? I am pro-truth, okay? I'm pro-truth. But I'm not shocked because your police are not taught about SIDS, why we have sudden infant death syndrome. They aren't taught about Islam. They aren't taught about what really goes on in the mosque. They aren't taught about most of what happens that they're going to deal with. They learn on the fly at best. I was talking to a medical student the other day. He's got 1 year, and he'll be called a doctor, studying to be an OBGYN. I've known him since he was a teenager. And he is so pro-vax. And I said, really? I said, so what vaccines are you for little babies? Oh, well, I think when they should definitely have the measles, mumps, rubella. And I said, oh, really? Have you done any studies related to that? And autism? Oh, that's all just conspiracy. I said, really? And how much homework have you done on this versus just you're being brainwashed in medical school? I said, what else do you think they should get? I guess you probably think they should get the hepatitis B shot. Oh, yeah, definitely. I said, how long does that hepatitis B shot last there, doctor? He says, and I was being quite smart with him because I've known him since he was a teenager. And he really thinks he's smart. I mean, he really thinks he's brilliant. And he may be, but he's a typical probably kid in medical school 1 year, because he's like, in 1 year you can call me doctor. I'm like, I think I'll still call you by your first name. But anyway, I said, how long does that hepatitis B shot last? Oh, a long time. I said, really? What, isn't it like 7 years? So you're planning sometime between day 1 and 7, that child's going to be a drug user with dirty needles and risky sex? He looked at me like, what? I'm like, yeah, why don't you go do your homework on these shots? He was buying the propaganda. So, of course, the cops are told things. So when they find 2 twins dead, a set of twins dead, they start interrogating the police. But here we go. On May 1st, Dallas and Thiessen, fraternal 18-month-old twins, were found dead by their mother after receiving the hepatitis A, flu, and diphtheria vaccines. Well, there you go. She told the pediatrician, if I remember reading this article, she was already leery, that they had a history of allergic reactions to the flu vaccine, but the pediatrician said it would be okay to give the shot to the babies anyway. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I see this all the time, and you are 100% right. What we are taught in medical school is that all those people thinking outside of the box are wrong, that it's just all propaganda, and that these are the facts, this is the science. But man, my eyes were open back in 2001 when I read that book. And I read that book because I had given the traditional 15-month shots, because that's what I was trained to do, one of which was the MMR, to 2 patients at the same time. Interestingly, one was 15 months old, one was 5 years old. And the 15-month-old all of a sudden started having issues with things like making eye contact and having these obsessive behaviors where he was really interested in things that were moving around, especially in circles. And his mom noted a change in behavior at his 18-month visit. And the 5-year-old, the mom brought her back in because she wasn't able to straighten her finger out all the way. And it turned out she had a swollen red joint. When I examined her, we found 2 other joints that were swollen. The elbow, she couldn't straighten it out, and the knee was starting to get red. We diagnosed her with rheumatoid arthritis.
CDC's own data.
Yeah, autoimmune reactions are a real concern. And we just don't know about the long-term effects, not only of all the other vaccines, but also the long-term effects of specifically the mRNA technology. And so I think there's a lot that's still to be developed and revealed. And I think drug companies would be less likely to throw things out here like this if they were held to being sued by the individual people, if in fact we can prove that some of the reactions were due to the vaccines that they received. The other thing too is the number of vaccines that we had when we were kids. Brandon, if you received any vaccines, is literally probably 1/10 the number that they are having to receive now.
Yes, absolutely. Listen to what RFK Jr. said about this to John Stossel. Here we go.
You still say that autism is caused by vaccines?
Yeah, autism is caused by vaccines. And by the way, CDC's own data, you know, they did a study called the Verstratton study in 1989. And they looked at the hepatitis B vaccine. They looked at children, and from the biggest database in the world, the Vaccine Safety Data Link, they looked at children who got the hepatitis B vaccine during their first 30 days, and they compared those to kids who got it later or didn't get it at all. And there was a 1,350% elevated risk for autism among the people who got the vaccine.
There may well be, but there are studies with millions of people. You ignore the big studies.
You have this wrong. There's a series of about 13 studies that were done by people we call biostitutes. One of them was the leading one, who are people who do these studies for money for CDC, who are paid for by CDC in order to create the illusion that vaccines don't cause autism. The chief scientist was a guy called Paul Thornton, who CDC late, and his study is the most cited study for this proposition. And Paul Thornton is now a fugitive. He's wanted by Interpol. He stole millions of dollars from CDC that he had claimed to use on this study, but he was building houses, buying motorcycles, and living a life of luxury. And his study is absolute fraud. And yet they have not retracted it because CDC is a dishonest organization. It continues to be cited in the literature. And by the way, John, there are hundreds and hundreds of studies. I've written a book, if you're interested, called Thimerosal, Let the Science Speak, that has, I think, 1,400 references and over 400 studies cited that link autism and other related neurological injuries to vaccines. There is no question about it. If you actually read the literature, if you listen to what the propaganda that CDC tells you, yeah, vaccines don't cause autism, but it's propaganda. This is a captive agency that is intertwined and owned by the pharmaceutical industry.
Yep. Doctor?
Yeah, you look where the money is in legislation. Look where the money
You still
is.
say that.
And look where the money is in lawyers who are litigating for the vaccine companies. Where the money is spent the most in technology, for example, also exactly the same thing with that also being a captured agency. Where the money is, where these lawyers are that are advocating for vaccines and EMF and things like things like that, that is where you're probably going to find the biggest sources of problems and the largest agencies that are captured by money and greed.
Let's go to this real quick. This is the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India. Found this chart interesting. Obesity can increase risk of several serious health issues: joint pain, knees and back, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, early puberty, and PCOS in girls, which can lead to infertility, breathing issues and sleep apnea, high risk of cancer, mental health struggles like depression and low self-esteem, obesity. Now they're saying studies that the vast majority of Americans in the next 20 years, the vast majority are going to be obese, which I guess along with that's going to become skyrocketing healthcare costs in America, correct?
Absolutely. In 2019, there was a graph of the United States, and there was one state left that still had obesity rates less than 20%, and that was Colorado. Okay. That has since changed, but that was like the last healthy state to sort of live in because they do live a healthier, active, outdoor lifestyle, probably, I'm assuming. But yes, there's only 12% of the in the United States, only 12% of people who live here are thought to be metabolically healthy. And Dr. Casey Means, who's the new Surgeon General under the Trump administration, actually wrote a book on cellular health. And it is really, really captivating and good, I think. It's very solid, good information. And it also sort of takes a functional medicine approach to the overall understanding of how cells work. If you can understand how cells work and how to optimize cells, then everything else works better. But here's the caveat with being overweight and obese. When you are obese, you are making an incredible amount of inflammation in your body and you will never catch up. And when you have inflammation, as you well know, inflammation is the root of everything else. So you're going to see more cancers. You're going to see worse leaky gut. You're going to see more autoimmune diseases. You're going to be more tired. You're going to be more mentally worn out. You're going to have to take that nap in the afternoon every day. It's not worth it. I just did an Instagram post and my daughter had asked some questions. And one of the questions she asked was, well, do people have a choice to eat healthy or not? I'm like, the real choice is not eat healthy or not. The real choice is, do you want all these diseases or do you want to eat healthy? That's the real choice. Do you want to live a healthy lifestyle, which will then give you the benefits of being more active, having a brain that actually works, not having that afternoon slump, and not having as high of a risk as so many cancers, diabetes, heart disease, heart attacks, strokes, all these things that are life-changing, and I call them life-stealing. If you want a health span, that means you want a long health span. That means you want to live a long number of years, but also be functional a lot during that time. You don't have a choice. You have to be a normal weight and you have to be metabolically sound. So in our course, Your Thrive Code, we talk a lot about blood sugar regulation because that's sort of where it really starts. A lot of people don't realize that sugar in the blood acts like a inflammatory sort of toxin. It glycates things, and that causes an incredible amount of inflammation. And if you cannot get that sugar into a cell where then we can make energy out of it, then you're just perpetuating this significant inflammation.
Wow. All right, let's transition before we wrap here. My yogurt, you've sent me some stuff. Tell our audience what you've sent me for my yogurt every day.
Yes, I recommended, I believe either at the end of the last time we talked, just to how to make a little something better. So you were talking about using some yogurt and putting some fruit on top. And I personally like to use this coconut yogurt. It's just got a lot less sugar in it. And I like to keep my blood sugars really nice and even. So I use a coconut-based yogurt. And we talked about adding some healthy omega-3 fats to it. So we talked about adding chia seeds. I wanted to bring this little package I have in my pantry, just in case other people don't know what chia seeds look like. They're just these tiny little black seeds. The one thing you have to remember with chia seeds, if you're going to use them the night before because you want them to swell up and take in some of that liquid around them. So it'll certainly make the yogurt thicker. If you don't like that, you can add in a little milk alternative. I use Malk, M-A-L-K, milk alternative. It's bad oil free, emulsifier free. So out of all the already made milks, that's the best one. You can thin it out a little bit that way. And then we also talked about adding a little protein to your yogurt. And we love this protein. This is a pure IgG, pure protein from myvitamin.com. This protein is made with whey powder. It's whey powder, which is a dairy-based protein, which is really, really, really good for your body's own ability to make glutathione and other antioxidants. Of course, the problem with whey is there's a lot of dirty whey out there. This whey is super clean. And it's actually made from cows that are in New Zealand. And we use the A2 protein, which is easier for our human bodies to digest.
Excellent. Now, and then again, let's go to my vitamin, no S on that, myvitamin.com/worldview before we talk about a very important topic. You're watching or rewatching The Firm, filmed here in Memphis. Then we'll go. Myvitamin.com/worldview, myvitamin.com/worldview. Anything you want to remind our audience, Dr. Williams, about this?
Yes, I actually, if you don't mind, I would love to read to you what a very smart viewer said. One of your viewers said that he actually said he had an email for us, but I'm going to just kind of cut to the place where it's important, where he said, I should have been more specific with my question. For the magnesium in particular, my understanding is that the material is likely to have significant amounts of heavy metals depending on where it comes from. Does your testing include heavy metals? Do you have a certificate of authenticity, or what we call a COA? And are you able to share it? And we absolutely do have a certificate of authenticity. This is something that's extremely important to me. This is where early on in my career, I did not recommend vitamins because I didn't know how to check a company out. And I didn't know how to look for contaminants, to look for efficacy, to look for quality, to look for bioavailability. All those things were really important to me before I could make a recommendation. So it hasn't been, except for the last 15 years, that I've actually recommended supplements. And this is a company where I often tell my patients, these are the exact supplements I want you to be on, because if these don't work, I know it's not because the supplements aren't getting into your body and going to where they need to work, that we're missing something else, that there's something else going on that we need to keep investigating. And you have to remember, the patients I see sometimes are very complex. They've already seen 6 doctors. So we're using the best of the best that I'm aware of and that I've actually researched. So yeah, we sent this gentleman a certificate of analysis because it's important to see that what we have is as clean as we can possibly make it.
And then remind them about Worldview, myvitamin.com/worldview and what they need to be doing in getting there, please.
Yeah, so just go to myvitamin.com/worldview. Please put in the worldview because we want our partner, Brandon House, to have the sales that this show is creating and generating. My joy of coming on this show is really sharing sort of some stories and information and all these things that I've learned over the past 30 years of being in the trenches of seeing patients and still seeing patients to this day. So I really love that, but we really want to support Worldview. So myvitamin.com/worldview. If people want to they don't know what supplements to take, or they don't take any supplements at all, a good one to get started on is any of the foundationals. The men's foundational, the women's foundational, the women's foundational plus 50. We added a special highly absorbed calcium that has other minerals in it that actually help support bone loss. And also we have a teenager/college kid pack that is great for our younger kiddos.
Excellent, excellent. Real quick question. Have you seen the Netflix documentary on the Tylenol murders? Remember that back in the early 80s? Have you seen that documentary?
I've not seen the documentary, but I definitely remember the Tylenol contamination and just sort of went through a whole entire change in how we allow medications to be sold over the counter in terms of being tamper resistant and things like that.
Mm-hmm. I watched it the other night. Let me show you the trailer real quick, if you don't mind. It was super fascinating to me. And I think you'll see why. Here, watch this.
I was 8 years old. I remember my mom coming out of the bathroom and saying, I feel weird.
They said, my brother Aaron got a heart attack. I says, what are you talking about? He's a very healthy person.
Paula was murdered. She was just murdered.
The next I know, I'm watching my mom go out on a stretcher.
These are not all heart attacks. Something's killing them.
There were 6 capsules missing, and there are 3 victims. I said, it has to be Tylenol.
It was a new way for a mass murder.
Tylenol.
You found cyanide in Tylenol.
Innocent people were poisoned to death for no reason. There was terror, there was fear.
This product may be contaminated.
Nothing to this magnitude had ever happened before.
Don't use Tylenol.
What kind of person did this?
James Lewis, he's a real life boogeyman.
You think I'm going to open this and get my fingerprints all over it?
When it comes to the FBI, he was their obsession. He was the only one they thought did it.
The investigation was problematic from the start.
Why are we not digging and asking more questions?
There was really only one way out of this crisis, and that was for them to be seen as a victim of a madman.
So if anyone asks me if I still use Tylenol, my answer is yes.
They're barking up the wrong tree. They will never solve the Tylenol homicides.
Now the product is triple sealed. There is absolutely no reason that this could ever happen again, but it happens.
The entire narrative suddenly looks a little more suspect.
You have to follow the evidence, wherever the evidence takes you.
Yeah, fascinating, because the documentary claims that it was triple sealed, and yet it happened again after it was triple sealed. There were so many questions I had after watching this documentary. I would be interested, when you have the time or when you're traveling or something, could watch it on your iPad or smartphone or something. And then we can talk about it, because to me, I don't know. I came away with well, I was always led to believe that it was some guy that did it, and he's mentioned there. But so many people in the documentary said, no, this guy didn't do it. And which leads you down a trail of, wait a minute, how did it then happen again if it's triple sealed, according to the documentary? And it's kind of like, wait a minute, pharmaceutical companies, these manufacturers of medical products and medicines, and then COVID-19. It's, I was now looking at it through the eyes of 2025 back. And I'd be interested to see your response after watching that documentary.
Yeah, I'll definitely watch it. It's very interesting. That type of stuff is very interesting to me. But, I think this is where you go back to the supplements, and this is why we have third party and our own company that double and triple checks our products, because we don't want to take chances. And ours are, like we said before, 40% of our raw material is rejected if it doesn't meet our standard. But then even after that, we are third party checked on a regular basis. And that is something that we impose on ourselves, not because the government is imposing that on us. And we have our own standards for what clean is, because like I said, we're a professional grade supplement place. We're not a over the counter, you can't just get this from anywhere type of a facility.
Mm-hmm. Okay, in closing, you watched The Firm. It was filmed here in Memphis. We talked about it last week. What did you think? Had you seen it before?
I had seen it before, and I had seen it many years before. So there were little bits and pieces that I remember, but I just thought, man, it's so interesting taking a fresh new look at it, especially now that my brain processes things differently. Whereas before I was more involved, I actually paid more attention to sort of the love story than I did the actual law part of it. And this time I really paid more attention to that. But yeah, I thought that was really well done. Obviously, a great movie, and just great to look at some of the places in Memphis. So now when I come there, I'll actually be on the lookout for those places.
Well, you actually can go to a website and they will direct you to all the places where it was filmed, and you can go to those restaurants and those sites and those locations. It does show off Memphis very well. And by the way, Kash Patel the FBI director, is sending in a special crew to help clean up Memphis. So I think we're going to see some great improvement in Memphis. Not that there's a real problem in Memphis for the average person, because most of the crime is bad people onto bad people, people doing things they shouldn't be doing. A lot of it's retaliatory, drug gang going at each other, and it happens in the bad parts of town. But even so, we still want all that cleaned up. And now I guess Kash Patel's sitting in a special team to clean up Memphis, which will be good for all of us. But yeah, look forward to having you here in Memphis in October at our conference. And we'll look forward to finding out, text me if you will, where I need to go here in the Memphis area to get my blood done. And we'll get that done, set up to you. And then we'll look forward to doing a show sometime in after the middle of August. We'll come up to O'Fallon and do a whole show on this.
Yeah, that sounds exciting. We'd love to have you.
My Vitamin, let's do it. My Vitamin, no S there, myvitamin.com/worldview, myvitamin.com/worldview. Thank you, Dr. Williams.
Thank you so much for having me here. Have a blessed day.
You too. We'll be right back after this break.